And we're live.
With Paranormal Spirits.
The place where we come to get our booze on.
We talk about the booze.
The things that go bump in the night.
And I get to do that with all my booze. I'm Mike Black. This is my wife, Alyssa Black.
Greetings.
My best friend, John Burkett.
He didn't say breast friend.
You've lost it.
I didn't say.
You've lost that
I didn't say
title
breast
now.
friend now. Just best. So, if you're coming here on a podcast and listening to us, I'm going to tell you about some of the places that you can come to see us besides that. And I'm going to tell you a story tonight. And when I was researching this is a really sad story. It's a spooky story, but it's sad too. So I'm going to give you a trigger warning. If you're triggered by things that are sad and kind of make you grab a hanky, this one might do it, because it almost did for me. But
did it make you feel verklempt?
No, it did not make me feel verklempt. But
emotions.
It was a very emotional story when I was researching it, and you'll see why when I get to it. But anyway, if you're listening on a podcast, you can catch us on YouTube at 3B Paranormal Spirits. I'm sorry, 3B Paranormal Spirits.
There we are.
No dash.
Sound like I've already been the spirits, doesn't it? Then we have a Facebook site, which is Booze with Benefits. We also have Instagram. We have TikTok and Twitter. They all have the same name. It's paranormal _ dash DASH spelled out _ spirits. And that's for Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Now, if you go to our website, which is paranormalspirits.com, paranormal-spirits.com. I can't talk tonight. Good Lord. That's kind of a landing page, and you can get to all those places. And you can go to our swag site where you can pick up your Boozy's koozie, and you can pick up your Boozy's coffee mug, and you can pick up your Boozy's beanie and your dad cap or your trucker cap or racerback tees, which John has promised that he's going to wear during a podcast when we get to 100 subscribers.
I'm here for it.
On YouTube.
Better hurry up and hit that number before
I know, y'all subscribe. The more people that subscribe, the sooner you get to see John in the racerback tee. And as an effort to increase our solidarity and our friendship, I will wear a racerback tee as well. Ooh. So you'll get to see both of us in racerback tees.
That's the one you're going to want to listen to audio only.
Audio.
Absolutely.
It will haunt your nightmares.
And since this show is about spirits, we start off every night with a spirit to get the ball rolling. And tonight we are drinking tequila. John, tell us about the tequila we're drinking tonight.
This is Tres Agaves Blanco. That means 3 agaves. For those of you who don't know.
What does agave mean?
Extremely basic Spanish. It's the plant that tequila.
Extremely basic.
This is an organic tequila.
Oh.
I've never had the Blanco. I've had the Añejo. It is.
What'd you think about the Añejo?
The bottle's gone.
Yeah, well.
First smell. What's it smell like? I got something right off the nose.
That's agave.
That's agave. I get
it
agave.
Smells like butterscotch.
I smelled pickles last time, and
I smell butterscotch.
I get a little bit of that, some kind of buttery something, maybe.
It's like, I feel like it's butterscotch.
Oh yeah, these are clean glasses, right?
They are clean glasses.
It's like
I haven't been drinking butter schnapps out of it or
like
anything.
You've been drinking Werther's out of
nipples.
here?
Yeah, no buttery nipples out of this one. Can you say nipples on YouTube?
Yes, you can't
okay.
show them on you, but you can say
What if I have pasties?
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Keep that to yourself,
or you can digitize them,
Yeah, I guess, or blur them out,
pixelate them. I've done that.
So, this says when it comes to our Blanco, they're rebels. They're rebels. Relaxed, but rebels nonetheless. You see, by law, Blanco tequila can be aged up to 60 days in order to mute the agave flavors. But we love the taste of agave. Because when your agaves are organic, grown in the Tequila Valley, That's in Jalisco.
I was going to say that's got to be Jalisco.
Yeah, and slowly roasted to perfection. There's nothing to hide. That's why we bottle our Blanco as soon as it's distilled. The result, vibrant and sweet agave aromas that include hints of citrus, mint, and pear, typical of the Tequila Valley terroir.
Okay.
I don't know why they have this French sounding. I don't know. All of them talk about the terroir. Or maybe I'm saying that the French way. And there's
I don't
actually
know.
a Spanish way to say that. But don't just take our word for it. The Ultimate Cocktail Challenge awarded our Blanco the Chairman's Trophy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, it does come highly recommended.
Yeah.
This has some decent legs on it, by the way.
Estate-grown, unaged, vibrant, and sweet agave aromas dominate with supporting notes of citrus, pear, and hints of wild mint.
I just get butterscotch all day.
I get a little bit of ethanol. That's a truck going down the road, and you can hear it. That must be a really big truck.
That's one of those mosquito trucks.
Oh, is that what it is?
They're spraying for
It's
mosquitoes.
not as weird as the bicycle playing techno.
No, it was not. So John and I, before the podcast started out, we were outside, and there's a electric bicycle, no less, with LEDs on it. Yeah, and it's playing like techno music as it's going down the road. I swear
And
to
they
God.
kept coming back and forth, like
Yeah,
right by your
over and over. It
fences.
was a trip.
Party
All right.
on two wheels.
So ready?
Yep.
Cilantro.
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 Oh,
I like that.
Sharp. Burr. Not too bad, though.
that's just about right. I mean,
That's pretty good.
there's
That's
not
good.
enough burn to make me go, ooh, that's bad, or that's Mexican moonshine. That's, well, I mean, some of it is.
It's still buttery. You still get that. It's like a
I get it.
buttery, butterscotchy
Ooh.
kind of.
That's good. I don't know if I like it better than the G4, but it's good.
It's very good. I would,
What's the price point on this?
It's like $35. It's not. It's
yeah,
not
it's
expensive at all.
not expensive at all.
As
That's-
opposed to the G4.
That's really good.
It says it has a pleasing taste.
Uh,
That's it.
that's it.
It's silky
a pleasing
texture.
taste.
It's silky texture that make it
So-
ideal for sipping and mixing.
So they didn't get the marketing company that Rolex did
no
to describe their
that,
tequila.
That Vigente or any of the other ones that have this long descriptive.
Yeah, that trips me out when they do that. It's just like,
G4 wasn't very descriptive either. It just it tastes good.
and by God, it did. It was good.
G4 is about 45. So
What's this, 35?
This I've had the añejo of this, and I think I only paid about $45 for the añejo.
I think I don't think it's quite as smooth as a G4.
agreed.
That G4 is
That's good.
It was
really good.
smooth.
It's pretty smooth though.
And of course, G4 is not as smooth as Mijenta, so
Yeah, this is about 30, 32.
I'm telling you, it's not expensive.
No,
and
it's really good.
That was me.
Oh.
This table cracks and pops sometimes.
Tequila Valley, Jalisco.
Good stuff.
There's names of towns in there, but it's too small for me to see.
The G4 is like all over the place. Some of the cheaper ones are like 38, 45, 50. So,
So what is this normally? 35?
yes.
That is, for a $35 tequila, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
For that price point, I would put that at excellent.
It
And
is.
excellent for that price point.
And when they fool you, when you're walking by our liquor store down here, it's sitting right next door to the Terramana on the same shelf, right next to it.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Well, maybe because they both start with T.
Same price point,
Right.
Yeah.
but this is better. Yeah.
It is better. Certainly better. All right. So we talked about the booze. I give it a thumbs up. John? Thumbs
Oh,
up?
definitely,
Totally?
yeah.
Alyssa? Thumbs up? Okay. We're all thumbs up for...
I was trying to see what homie rated it.
Mary's gonna get pissed off.
Yep.
A B.
A B? Yeah. So for its price point, I think it's an A.
I would agree.
Someday we'll have to find Fortaleza
Oh, I know, right?
stock.
Okay. That's our quest.
That's the grail.
All right, I'm going to tell you guys a story. We talked about the BOOZE. Let's talk about the BOOS. What?
I just keep hearing things like
It's this kitty cats.
Probably the kitty cats wanting out of their entrapment because we can't have them climbing on the table while we're doing the podcast. Because we don't have a studio.
they would jump right up there.
I know, catch their tail on fire.
Catch their tail on fire, then run
And then-
around
Knock
and
the
get
tequila
the whole place.
over.
Jump up the blankets, knock the cameras
Knock
over.
the tequila over, then that would catch on fire.
All the computers are gone. All their audio equipment's
It's just
gone.
not ideal.
All right, let's talk about the BOOS. And this is the story. If you've seen A Haunting in Connecticut, the first of the Conjuring movies, that's what this story is about. This is
Well, that's
this
two
gives
different
you.
movies.
Is it? Yeah.
There's The Conjuring, and then there's Haunting in
Yeah,
Connecticut.
okay.
It's not part of the Conjuring universe.
Yeah,
with the,
you're right.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was the Connecticut home that was haunted from the Conjuring universe with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and it talks about the Snedeker family, Snedeker family. It's hard to say.
Snickerdoodle fan.
Yes, the Snickerdoodle. No, it's Snedeker. And
Snedeker. It's probably
Snedeker. It's Snedeker. Keep me straight, because I've heard so many. I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I've read a bunch of articles, and I'm hearing all these different pronunciations for it. So keep me straight. All right. So in the winter of 1986, 13-year-old Philip Snedeker was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it starts off sad. He was given 6 months to live. He had to see a specialist, an oncologist, that was 8 hours away. And it's about a 300-mile drive in Connecticut, I'm assuming, with the traffic or whatever.
Connecticut, you drive 300 miles, you're going to end up in Maine. Or West Virginia.
That's what I'm thinking.
They did not live in Connecticut at
Pennsylvania.
the time. They had to travel to Connecticut, which was 300 miles away and about an 8-hour drive for them.
Where were they?
I didn't even look. But they needed to move to Connecticut because this is just too much. This is too taxing on Philip to have to travel like this. So Carmen Snedeker goes to Connecticut to look for a home. She finds one. Alan, the dad, that's my cats. They're wanting out of there.
Mm-hmm.
They can't
Sounds
come
like
out.
they are out of there.
They're not. So Alan puts in for a transfer. That's the dad. And doesn't get the transfer yet. But luckily, Carmen found a home. And this home was for rent. It was a perfect fit, 4 bedrooms, but it was under reno when she got there. So she couldn't see the whole house. She only could see part of it. The really nice thing about it was that it fit the budget. And that was massive for them because they were having financial difficulties because they were trying to pay for Philip's chemotherapy. And on top of that, it was only just a few minutes away from the hospital. So they were really fortunate in finding that. Weeks later, they actually begin to move. Alan thinks that Carmen has done this amazing job of finding a home. He's so happy. So they go in there and they start looking at the house.
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York is where they're from? Okay.
Yes.
And so they go down into the basement in a room off of the basement. So you have the basement, okay, the room to the left, and there's a room to the right. The room to the right has this door with a window in the door or glass in there so they can see in. And this is filled with all these strange tools wax, heavy makeup. So they figure out that this room off of the basement was where they prepped the bodies, and this was a funeral home at one point. And there's even a body hoist that goes from the basement up to at what would become Alan and Carmen's bedroom.
Those make a great bar. I saw somebody who bought a funeral home as a house.
No.
And they converted. They went and got a nice coffin and turned it into a bar that they could lift up and they built it.
I happen to know somebody that lives in an old funeral home.
Oh my God. So Carmen, once Alan and Carmen, they're looking at this and they're going, oh my God, this was a funeral home. Carmen flips shit. She says, no, I'm not bringing my kids here. There is no way. And Alan's like, nobody died here. He said,
they were dead when they got here.
They were already dead when they got here. So it's not a big deal. We can utilize this. It's the right place. It's the right amount of money. This is good for us. And so anyway, the landlord, he comes in, he takes all the tools out, but he leaves the tables that are in this room.
Stainless steel tables.
Yeah, the stainless steel tables, because you need those. The freezer.
The drainage holes in the building.
And the body hoist. He leaves that.
That come in real handy, though, getting stuff from the basement.
Well, think about it,
The dumbwaiter.
The problem is this dumbwaiter didn't go to the kitchen. It went to their bedroom.
I'll say the bedroom.
Yeah, so that doesn't really work for him. Okay. So Carmen doesn't want to move in, but Alan convinces her they need a house. It fits the budget. They spent all this money on Philip's treatment. They're going broke. I mean, like hand over fist, these bills are coming in. And so they decide, okay, we're going to move in. We're going to utilize this place, but we're not going to tell the children. Okay, so they're good, right? So the first day, the kids are exploring the house when they start moving in. Carmen is in the kitchen and she's mopping. And as she's putting her water in the bucket and getting her mop there, next thing you know, this water turns blood red and looks like congealed blood. And then suddenly, poof, it just goes back to clear, right? And it kind of freaks her out. Well, Philip goes to the basement. Now, Philip is the oldest son. He's, I think, 14 now. Goes to the basement, and he feels like someone's watching him. And then he hears someone calling his name. So he goes to tell his mother, who thinks that this is associated with the stress of the illness or something like that.
This is the same mother that just saw the water
Carmen.
turn red.
Yeah. Well, Philip figures out, he's a sharp kid, figures out this is a funeral home, or it was. And Carmen believes that because Philip is so close to death at this point, that the veil between life and death is thinner for him. We've talked about that veil between our worlds. She thinks it's thinner for him, and so she thinks that's why he knows this. That's why he's able to detect this. Okay, during this time, Carmen has the whole house to herself. Alan, remember, is working 8 hours away. So it's like he can't drive 8 hours a day every day. So he's staying at the job site, in that town. So he's only coming home on the weekend, and Carmen's got the whole house to herself. And Philip taking him to the doctor and dealing with the kids. And, it's a handful.
The blood mop water.
Yeah, the bloody mop water. Well, shortly after they move in, their youngest daughter is up in her room on the second floor. She's playing with her dolls in there, and she notices a shadow kind of, looming over her. She turns around, and there's an older woman there, gray hair, sunken eyes. And so the daughter freaks out. She runs down to her mom. And Mom goes upstairs to investigate. She gets up there, and of course she doesn't see anything. So she's like, okay, it's your brothers, jacking with you and playing tricks on you. So she goes and scolds the boys. And they deny doing anything. They're like, hey, it wasn't us. We swear to God, you know. She goes and back downstairs to finish supper after this. So Carmen is like getting no rest at all. And the only time that she can rest is when she's asleep. The boys' bedrooms are in the basement. So you remember there's the basement. Then there's that room off to the left that belongs to Bobby. Philip has the main room down in the basement, and then you have what became known as the lab, they called it, and the lab was the prep room.
Yeah.
So
this is where the hoist comes down to, right?
Yes. So they the boys aren't getting any sleep because they're disturbed by sounds and sights of someone moving behind this closed door with the window in it.
The embalming room.
Yes.
They were in the casket room.
Yeah.
It says they were in the casket display room.
Yeah. So these boys are like freaking out, and at first they just think, well, it's just my mind playing tricks on me. Because, you know, I mean, we've all been in some place where you go, oh, was that a shadow? Did that move? You know? I mean, so they think their minds are playing tricks on them. So they're brothers and they talk, you know. They figure out that they're both seeing the same things at the same time. And they feel a presence down there with them. During this time, Philip is getting worse, very sick. And like I say, they'd only given him 6 months to live. And he literally is knocking at death's door at this point. And of course, now he's not getting any sleep either. So, you know, his condition is just worsening. And soon the boys, they just can't take it. And they tell Carmen, their mother, what they've been experiencing. And that they're seeing a man in this, what they call the lab room or the body prep room. And Carmen tries to, you know, assuage or negate the fears of Philip and Bobby, and tries to explain to Philip, well, maybe you're experiencing this because you're so sick and because of the medication that they have you on. And Philip replies to his mother, well, why is Bobby seeing these things too? He's not sick. You know, of course, you didn't have an answer for that, obviously. But Carmen, to this point, has not experienced anything. I mean, other than the bloody mop water. And, you know, that could be explained away with stress, you know, or something like that. Or, yeah, tequila. Tequila will make you see all kinds of things.
Tequila to deal with stress.
Yeah, maybe she was stressed and then drank some tequila and then mopped, and, you know. But anyway, so up till now, it's nothing paranormal. So one night she's prepping dinner, and she is just at the table. She goes down to the deep freeze to get some meat out. While she's down there, she hears a noise in the dining room. So she comes back up there. She walks into the dining room, and all the dishes are gone. All these dishes that she had placed on the table, and now they're gone. And she's like, she knows that she's placed them there. And she's like, she feels like she's going nuts because she knows she set that table. So, and at the very same time that this happens, Bobby is in the basement, which is Philip's younger brother, and he starts hearing whispers, this whispering, and it's coming from that prep room. So he keeps sneaking closer to the door, and he's listening and getting closer and closer. And finally, he can make out what this thing is saying to him. And it's saying, Philip, 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 Philip. It's like over and over. It's calling for Philip, this thing in the prep room, right? So Bobby, just like, he freaks out. He runs up there to his mom. Mom, 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 mom. You know, and he's telling her, hey, this is what I heard. So Carmen goes back downstairs with Bobby and goes to the door. Finally, she works up her nerve and she opens the door. Nothing. Silence. Nada. And so Carmen has always believed, she's very spiritual, very religious, and has always believed that there's a spirit world, but she does not believe that they can interact with us. So, or the living. So, but it was that very night that all changed. And that was considering what the boys had told her and her own experiences in the dining room. She knew that spirits could interact with the living, and they were. So, Alan comes home for the weekend because he's only spending the weekends at home. He's staying up upstate New York to work.
The dad.
And just as he's getting home, this is in the wintertime, and a storm is setting in. And Alan knows that Philip has told his brothers and sisters by now this used to be a funeral home. And so Alan decides, well, we need to have a come to Jesus meeting about this. So he sets everybody down at the breakfast table, and they have a family meeting. And he fesses up. He says, okay, yes, this was a funeral home, and yes, there were dead bodies here. Nobody died here. There's no boogeyman here. There's no monsters. There's nobody that can hurt you. Bobby and Philip disagree. They tell their dad, no, Dad, there's this dude down in the basement, and he's calling for Philip, and Alan's not going to hear any of this. He's like, no, bullshit. This is not true. And he dismissed their stories as an overactive imagination.
Alan should spend the weekend down sleeping in the basement.
Yeah, why not?
Or in the embalming room.
If he's so brave about it.
That's the thing about
sleeping in the embalming room.
That's the thing about this
There
whole
you go.
story. Poor Philip is stuck down in this basement the whole time, and Mom and Dad are just like poo-pooing him off every time he comes to him with something. So anyway, Alan pulls Philip aside after this family meeting, and he says, look, you're the oldest. You have to set an example. And you don't need to be scaring the younger kids with these ghost stories. Okay, and as you know, Philip's cancer treatments are just draining the family's money to pay for that. And so Philip he continues to hear these whispers in the house or in the basement. And Carmen starts telling herself, well, it's because of the medications he's on. And even though she and the kids have had experiences in the house, she still blames it on the meds for Philip.
What kind of meds would you be on? That would cause,
oncology meds, but there's nothing that would cause hallucinations. Nothing. And so anyway, I think it's horrible. I really do. But anyway.
What's the THC gel cap called? They probably didn't have that back then.
Probably not.
So one of the new things that's happening now at this point in the story is that all the crucifixes are disappearing. They're Catholic.
They're not turning upside down.
No, not like in the movies, but they're just disappearing. They're gone.
So these are like Catholic people
These are very devout Catholics.
that have crucifixes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the disturbances that the boys experience are coming nightly now. And they're seeing and hearing this man in the basement every night. So one night, the boys, they're frightened, they're terrified. They go up to wake Alan up. He's furious with the boys and yells at them and tells them to go back to the bed, to the basement, to go back to bed.
You go back there, go to bed.
And
I'm sleeping in your room.
So at this point, the boys are just completely freaked. They start leaving the lights on every night. And so anyway,
Alan's kind of a dick.
He is kind of a dick, you know? And that's why I'm saying it's sad, because Alan's kind of a dick. Carmen keeps poo-pooing him off. And he's suffering through all of this and has cancer on top of that. So Carmen and Alan get to talking, and they decide that Philip maybe needs to be examined and figure out if it's the medication that's doing this. So they take him to the doctors. The doctors assure the Snedekers that there's no way for the medication to affect Philip that way. And the doctors propose that, hey, if it's not the medication, maybe it's a mental issue going on, and maybe you should have a psychological examination for him. Anyway, so bills are piling up. They just keep piling up, and there were times.
Like one big long ad for Universal Healthcare, isn't it?
All right. So bills would keep piling up, and at one point, the bills they would come in and it'd be 2 inches of bills on the counter at any one time.
Medical's going in the trash.
And
insurance going to cover most of it.
Yeah. So Alan, he comes home on the weekend. He sees a stack of bills and he starts going through them. And he notices that the electric bill is twice what it normally is.
Is it Texas in the summer or Connecticut in the?
Because they're leaving the lights on.
Because they're leaving all the lights on.
Lights are going to make double your electric.
Hey, it's
Air conditioning will. But
I'm telling you what Alan said, and we know he's a dick, right?
he's a jerk.
So the electric bill was twice it normally was, and he knew that the boys were keeping their lights on at night. So not only was it causing him to stay awake, because they keep coming to him and say, hey, there's a ghost in my room. So now Alan has decided, you know what, I'm going to fix these little shits. I'm going to go down there and pull all the lights out. So he went down and pulled, yeah. Now, you talk about dick.
It's
this dude's a
basement,
dick.
right? How are they going to see to get dressed in the morning?
He left them one light. He left them one light in every room that they could turn on, and that was it.
Wait, one in each room, though.
Yeah, there's one in each room down there.
That's plenty. I thought he took all the light, left
dude,
one light.
So
in
anyway,
the whole basement.
So it wasn't long after this that the boys.
I sit in the dark at home. Watch TV. I don't like overhead lights, or I don't like any of that.
All right. Anyway,
Vampire.
Moving on and talking about the Snedekers. So they're down in the basement here, and this Bobby gets waking up, and then Philip's awakened. The lights are flashing on and off. Okay, in the fixtures that have no bulbs in them. The lights were just flashing, right?
Hadn't seen that before.
Me neither. Bobby, the younger brother, notices, he looks over to where the light switch is. His little sister's over there just laughing and flipping the switch up and down.
But there's no bulbs.
But the lights are coming on. He goes hauling ass after his sister. She turns around and runs up the steps from the basement. When he gets to the top, he notices that his mom and his, I think it was his aunt at the time, are in the living room. So he runs in there and he says, hey, did you see, God, I can't remember her name. His sister come through, and she's like, no, I put her to bed, hours ago, and she's asleep. I know, I tucked her in. He said, well, she was just down in the basement. He says, there's no way. So they go into her room and they check. There she is, sleeping soundly, tucked into bed. So Bobby goes back down the stairs and tells Philip, hey, it wasn't our sister. So now the boys are even freaked out even more, because not only can this thing do all the things that it's doing, but it can also impersonate family members. Yeah. So
this is not like just some regular old ghost.
This is like
no, there's something else going on. So anyway, while Philip's trying to take all this in and and understand it, he's getting more and more frustrated, and finally he's like, you know what, screw this, I'm gonna go talk to this thing. So he goes to the lab room, throws the door open, walks in, and comes face to face with this entity in the room. And it's this shadow, this dark form with red eyes. Dark, blood red eyes. So it was after this encounter when Philip faced up to this thing that his personality begins to change. And he begins to isolate from the family, spending more time in the basement. He's alone. He insists that Bobby has to move out of the basement because it's just him down there. So he's down there alone in the basement. And I wonder, I really do, if Philip maybe was trying to protect his little brother. I would like to think that that's what was going on.
This is not how I remember the movie at all.
Yeah. So as his mental state is taking a turn for the worse, he's become physically stronger. He feels better. His cancer goes into remission.
Oh, he's being possessed and it's healing him.
His cancer goes into remission during this time. So anyway, same time all this is going on, the Snedekers, one of the sisters of the family, they're going through a divorce. So two of their nieces move in with the Snedekers. So now you've got the youngest daughter, you've got Bobby, you've got Philip, and the two nieces, Teresa and the younger sister. Teresa was the older sister. And they came down from New York, and they're going to be staying. So Philip and Teresa, the cousin, they were like best buds.
I think it's up from New York, actually.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. So they're best buds, and they've been best buds forever, right? She notices that Philip is not the same boy that she used to know, and this dude is like dark, and I think of emo, but
Goth.
There was no emo back then.
Well, no, there was back in, it was 80, 85, 86, right? There was, trust me, even at Robert E. Lee High School, there was goth in the mid-80s.
Goth, but we didn't call it emo then.
No, we called it
goth. Okay. So Philip confides in Teresa and tells her what's going on with this dude in the basement, and evidently it keeps getting worse and worse. The activity is continuing. Now it's elevated to they're scratching on the walls. His name is being called. This thing is appearing to him nightly and standing by his bed.
This sounds like night terror type stuff.
Oh my God. Well, he wasn't frozen. It was like he could move. It was just, so this thing would tell him that he wanted him to do all these negative things and tell him things that his parents had said about him, like, oh, your family's going broke because, you're having cancer treatments, etc. So anyway, he told him, you know what you should do? You should hurt your family. And he started listing out all these unspeakable things that Philip was supposed to do to his family. Now, just so happens that Philip was not the only family member that was being tormented by this demon. And I called it a demon because I figured, what else could it be? Couldn't really be a ghost if it had that much power.
Sounds like a inhuman spirit.
Okay. So one night, Alan, his dad, is awakened when the covers are jerked off the bed.
Good.
And pulled off of him.
Good.
I know, right? Because he's a dick.
He deserves to be.
He is a dick, and he is so.
I bet his.
I don't know if he deserves this.
I bet he shut up after this.
So the demon holds him down and shoves his face into the pillow.
Wait, so the demon shows Alan's face in the pillow.
Alan's sleeping on his stomach, and the demon jerks the covers off, grabs his face, and shoves it into the pillow.
One might say he was biting the pillow.
One might say. And which he probably needs to be.
Shit.
Because I know you know what's coming.
Cornholing.
Yeah. So he shoves his face into the pillow, and before Alan can cry out and reach for Carmen, because Carmen's right next to him in the bed, before he can reach over and go, hey, before he can do that, this thing proceeds to sodomize Alan.
Cornhole him.
I know you can say
I
sodomize. I
would
don't know
come
if you
up-
can
You
say
can say
cornhole.
cornhole. It's a game.
With
where you toss
what?
Sandbags into a hole.
Does it say?
With what?
With his demonic.
With his demonic
pee-pee.
ding ding.
Oh.
Ding dong. Demon dong.
So when it's over, Alan reaches out to Carmen, who also experienced being sexually assaulted by the entity at the same time.
Oh, it's a threesome.
Maybe, yeah,
I
I
don't
guess.
feel bad about Alan at
I
all.
don't either. He's
he
a
deserves
dick.
it. I bet that's
He's
the
a
last
dick.
time he denies it. Well, this ghosts aren't real. Well,
Yeah,
you
he's-
just found out, didn't you?
Yeah, he was a dick.
In the worst possible way, you just found
Yeah,
out.
because he gave him some prison love, you know.
He made him his bitch.
Right. So Teresa, the cousin who is moved in with him during her parents' divorce, begins to notice that this whole family is being affected by the negativity. And they're all fighting and bickering, and this turns into screaming and shouting matches, mostly between Philip and Alan. And Alan blames Philip for the family's financial hardships. Philip blames Alan for his feelings of
Who
isolation
does Alan blame for the
and abandonment.
he just got?
Right.
So in Philip's diary, the thing or demon would push Philip to do horrible, unspeakable things nightly. It got to the point that Philip would not even leave his room. So the whole time this thing is pushing him and trying harder and harder to get Philip to hurt his family. And it began to threaten Philip and say if he didn't do the things he was told to do. So he says, I'm going to hurt you.
Just don't do me like you did Alan.
Oh my God, right? So
Or if you do, you know.
Philip is
give me a
telling.
ring around. You knew we had to go there.
Wow.
Wow.
He gives the courtesy.
Oh my God. Right?
Courtesy.
I wonder if he respected him in the morning, you know? Kissed him on the lips, told him he loved him when he was done, you know? I don't know. So in Philip's diary, which I think you can still get, this thing or the demon was pushing Philip to do all these horrible things. And so Philip tells Teresa, because Teresa was his buddy at one time. She's his confidant. And Philip tells her about the man with the red eyes and about other people, spirits in the basement with him. But the dude with the red eyes keeps these other people trapped.
Won't let them pass on to. Gotcha.
Will not let him pass.
This is a very typical
yeah,
of a demonic situation with multiple spirits, and you've got an inhuman spirit that's keeping the human spirits.
You know,
from
when
being
we're
able
talking
to-
about the Smurl haunting, it was the same situation where you had 3 ghosts, but one demon, and that demon was controlling the other 3 ghosts and making them do stuff. So basically, he was keeping them trapped, so to speak. Anyway, so Philip is telling her about all this stuff that's going on, and in the midst of telling her, Philip just flips and he grabs her arm and attacks her. She's down in the basement with Philip. She freaks out, runs and tells Uncle Alan, you know, what happened. And Alan basically exiles Philip to the basement.
He's already pretty much exiled himself to the basement.
He has. But, you know, it's, to me, this is really sad. This is a kid who's dealing with cancer. He's dealing with adolescence. And now you're throwing this demon that's standing at your bedside every night. God, I can't imagine. That must have been horrible for him. I mean, truly, you know. But anyway, he attacks her, and Alan sends him back to his room, and, you know, basically dooming him to suffer with the demon. And later that night, Teresa, being distraught by the situation with Philip, and how their relationship had been harmed by this attack by Philip. Carmen gave Teresa a rosary that she could wear, and she felt that maybe that would comfort her. Later that night, Teresa is awakened in the middle of the night, suddenly by the blankets being pulled off of her, just like Philip. And she wakes up staring eye to eye, or just like Alan, I'm sorry. She wakes up staring eye to eye with Philip. He attacks her, punching her multiple times in the face, it says.
He's a dick, too.
Oh, my God. So Carmen and Alan come to her rescue when they hear her screaming. They pin Philip. They call the police. And Philip was removed and taken to the hospital. Now, as he's being removed from the house, he's screaming and crying. And as he's being taken away and put into the ambulance, he doesn't remember anything. He says he just doesn't remember it. He was taken to the hospital for a psych eval, and just before being led into the hospital, as Carmen and Alan followed behind in the car, because they've got to sign him in so he can be evaluated.
At the nervous hospital.
At the nervous, well, actually at the
Regular
ER, yeah. Philip turns to Carmen and Alan and says, "Mark my words, now that I'm out of the house, it will be after you and it will get worse." So anyway, they get Philip checked into the hospital and they drive home. Alan goes to work and Carmen is sitting on the edge of the bed. She's crying, freaked out. Her kid's in the hospital. She's too stressed to sleep and not knowing what to do. And she's like, how do you fight something you can't even see? So she goes down to the basement. And she sits there and she challenges this thing. And said the basement turned ice cold. She began to shiver and shake. And suddenly could see her own breath coming out. So this thing is just immediate temperature drop. Carmen, but she never saw anything. Nothing ever talked to her. Nothing moved. She just temperature dropped, right? And she could feel this presence. So she goes back upstairs to take a shower. Maybe she can relax with the shower and she can go to sleep. And as she's taking the shower curtain starts creeping in on her. And she notices it, and she's like, what is this? And it just keeps getting closer and closer. Finally, this thing is like, choop, and it just sucks to her face. She can't get out of the shower curtain. She's screaming, she's crying, trying to breathe. At the same time this is happening, Teresa, the cousin, or the niece of Carmen and Alan, is asleep, and she jolts awake. The rosary that's around her neck is now, somebody's trying to choke her with it. She wakes up, she finally breaks the rosary free, jumps up, and she hears this muffled screaming. She runs into the bathroom to find Carmen in the bathroom being asphyxiated. So,
by the shower curtain.
Huh?
Wait, which one?
By the shower curtain.
By the shower curtain.
Carmen's in the shower. So anyway, she can't get the shower curtain off of her. So finally, she tears a hole in the shower curtain so that Carmen can breathe. When she does that, she's able to pull the shower curtain off of her. So they both just crumple down onto the floor, and they're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And Philip had said, "It's coming after you next." So Alan gets to work. This is going on during the same time. Alan gets to work, and on the way there, he's worried about the bill. He's thinking about everything. He think, okay, maybe work will take my mind off everything for a while. But that didn't happen. So Alan gets to work. The truck, after he gets out, starts back up. Now, we all know about dieseling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the truck cranks back up and drives through the wall where he sat at work with his keys in his pocket. So this truck is trying to...
So it went into gear.
Yeah, it went into gear. It said, he described it as if somebody had put their foot on the gas and stood on it. And the truck rams through the wall where he's at. So all this while, Carmen and Teresa are fighting the demon at the house. This thing is attacking him there, so it's following him wherever they go. And the phone rings for Carmen and Teresa. Carmen picks up the phone, and all she can hear is this muffled laugh on the other end of the phone. At that same time, she feels a burning sensation in her ear. This burning sensation is like, oh my God, and she drops the phone. She looks down, and the receiver is melting on the phone. This old landline, And the Teresa and Carmen look, and they see this mist, that's this dark mist that's floating above them in the room when this happens. So they run into the other room, and the phone rings again. This time it's Alan who says, hey, the police is here. The police are here.
Yeah, he wasn't in Arkansas. He didn't say the police is here.
No, I'm sorry. The police are here.
In West Virginia.
Oopsie. The police are here. The truck's run through the wall. It's trying to kill me. And here I am. I'll be home when I can. So here's Carmen. She's trapped in this house between this demon. It just so happens we have another winter storm coming in. So there's this raging storm outside. She didn't know what to do. So she calls the priest that married Alan and Carmen. It said, this is what's going on. I need you to come here. So the priest comes out to the house, and he tells her, you just need to ignore it and it'll go away. That was his advice. You just need to ignore it. Don't give it any energy. Just ignore it and it'll go away.
Heard worse advice. I mean, there are people that are not sensitive to it at all that could be living around this stuff their whole lives and never even notice it.
And that could be. But it wasn't for them.
Nope.
And so her friend, she calls her friend, talks to her. She gives her a number of Ed and Lorraine Moore. She calls and talks to Lorraine. And after Ed and Lorraine discuss this, they agree to visit the Snedekers that night. After arriving, Lorraine surveys the house. And, of course, she's a psychic, empath, whatever you want to call it. And she immediately drawn to the basement. And as she's going down the staircase, she's confronted with something along with a bunch of human spirits. Now, this thing that she was confronted with was not a human. And she said it was something demonic. So the Warrens, they tell Carmen that in order to cleanse this house, that they're going to have to do an exorcism. That exorcism has to be performed because this is demonic. This is not just a ghost haunting your house. And the Warrens decide they're going to call in John Zaffis. I know you've heard the name before because he's paranormal investigator, very famous paranormal investigator. He's called in to help investigate because they want to expedite the process of getting the exorcism. And, it takes forever to get them to agree to do an exorcism. So John and his crew and the Warrens move into the house for 9.5 weeks.
Not a very good movie, by the way. 9.5 weeks. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Completely unrelated.
Wasn't that Kim Basinger?
Kim Basinger and Mickey Rourke.
Basinger?
Mickey Rourke.
Yeah. But she was like half naked through the movie.
No, they were both all naked through the movie.
Yeah, so, you get that out of it at least. So the family,
Such an odd time. He said 9.5 weeks.
yeah.
Really weird.
So they were there for 9.5 weeks, sleeping in the living room on the floor, all on mattresses by the fireplace, the whole family, and the investigation team. And Philip's gone most of this time because he's still working. Still, the bills are still there. They still have to be paid.
Alan.
Yeah, Alan. I apologize, Alan. So the demon goes after the most vulnerable one, which is going to be Carmen. She feels guilty because she's not believed her kids when they said there's something in this house. You know, she's put her son in a psych hospital because of this. And so their family is just in tatters. And then you got the bills on top of that. And it's overwhelming, I'm sure. I can only imagine. And so Carmen becomes the focal point for this demon. And so one night, talking to the Warrens, Carmen is suddenly flung backwards out of the chair, across the floor. It's like somebody just, and she's gone, right? Pushed her across the floor. Her face twists up. Her throat swells up. And I'm going to read you the quote here. She would later describe the incident. I felt like I was in a dark hole surrounded by shadowy figures, but I could not make out their features. I felt despair to the point that if I were to stop breathing, I knew that I deserved it. So she feels pretty rough. So the Warrens, their crew, the family, they all start praying over her. They get the rosary that Teresa had and they place it on her. And they start praying, and finally she comes out of it. She didn't know where she was. She didn't know how long she'd been under or oppressed, possessed, whatever. And she felt like it had just been a few minutes. Lorraine told her that she had been out for more than 8 hours. And so the crew and the family have been for weeks like this. The mattresses, they take on almost a life of their own.
The mattresses
That they're sleeping on in the floor in the living room. They said that you could put your hands on it and feel the pulse of the mattress. It was almost like they were alive.
Don't wash your sheets in 9.5 weeks. You probably can feel
Oh my God.
it taking all life.
So anyway, it said it felt like they were alive and breathing. The Warrens claimed that they'd been on hundreds of paranormal investigations, but said that this was the most powerful demonic force they'd come across. And finally, they get enough evidence that they can request an exorcism. So what would have been one of the final nights that they're there, this John Zaffis, this investigator who's working with the Warrens, he wakes up in the middle of the night. And, they're all sleeping in this living room for their own protection from this demonic force. He wakes up and can't go back to sleep.
Zach would have gone down that basement and slept by it.
I know. No, he would have.
He'd have made Aaron do it.
He'd have made Aaron do it. So, anyway, he wakes up in the middle of the night, can't sleep. He goes into the living room, or into the kitchen, I'm sorry. And while he's sitting in the kitchen, all of a sudden he gets this cold that just surrounds him. He notices his breath coming out, and he goes, oh shit, I'm being targeted, by the demon. So he screams out for help. Hey! And he tried to wake everybody up just over in the living room. Nobody wakes up. Nobody says, hey, we'll come help you or whatever.
It's a hell of a place to have to go pee in the middle of the night.
Oh my God. So anyway, he goes back into the living room to wake everybody up. Nobody wakes up. And he hears the basement door start creaking as it's opening up. He goes and looks, and there's the man wearing the suit, contorted face, blood red eyes, and he runs back into the living room and
grab a camera, right?
Shivering from fear, And he tells Ed, I have to get out of this house. And evidently he has only spoken to him about this experience a few times since. He would say, I have never, in the decades upon decades of investigating the paranormal, experienced something to that degree of evil since that night, and I pray I never do again. So it freaked him out. So it was only a few days after he left, that John Zaffis left, that the Warrens took all their evidence to the church, and they agreed, the Roman Catholic Church agreed to the exorcism, which they rarely ever do to begin with.
Right. Ask Russell Crowe. I watched that the other day.
I know, it's cheesy.
I liked it.
Yeah, it was lame.
I enjoyed it.
So they rarely ever agree, but even fewer times do they agree to an exorcism of a place. It's usually a person. So, but they did. They agreed to it. And there's a priest that arrives to conduct the investigation. And this is after several weeks. And so the priest goes down, he investigates, he says, yep. He said, we're calling in the exorcist.
Russell Crowe.
It was Father Richard in this.
Okay, roll it up on that Vespa.
They called it Father Richard, but he says he's almost immediately drawn to the basement. And as he descends the stairs, Carmen is right behind him. And she said that this guy is very stoic and he was very serious, you know. And as he's going down the stairs, he said he starts grimacing. He says, this is creepy, icky feeling. And so he was freaked out by it. They start he goes right to the lab room first and starts there. And he's sprinkling the holy water, performing the rituals. He does this for every room in the house. The blessing. As they get up to the living room, which is the last room they're doing, and he begins the ritual, everything in the room begins to shake. Anything that was breakable did break. And so, glass, whatnots, they were talking about trinkets and, what do you call it?
Knickknacks.
Tchotchkes.
Tchotchkes? Yeah, tchotchkes.
Tchotchkes are falling off and breaking. And all of the Warrens and all of the family members were witness to this.
But no one had a camera going, right?
Hey.
All that investigative team.
I've been in haunted houses, and you've been in haunted houses. We know that this stuff happens.
But I wasn't in there with a whole team of investigators.
No. But, be that as it may, Teresa gets lifted off the floor. Something picked her up and dropped her. Again, this was witnessed by all. And so, and then just like a snap of the finger, suddenly it was over. And it was done. No more movement, no more negative feelings, no more nothing. It was done. So the possession was over. It was about a month after that Philip was released from the psych hospital. And very soon after that, the Snedekers moved out of that home. What?
Way too late.
Yeah, right. Well, Philip was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Really?
And on January 9th, 2012, the cancer came back and Philip died on that date.
Yeah, but he was much older than
he. Mm-hmm.
30.
Yeah, but still, he still died of cancer.
Right.
But I wonder, and this is the thing that was so sad to me in reading all of this, was Philip, did he stay in the basement to protect his little brother?
Probably.
and take the brunt of all this.
What do you think?
It's so sad, man.
This is just a funeral home. Why do you think that it has this in it?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Oh, and by the way, just to clear up, so you would say it's a Conjuring house, different house in Rhode Island, different story.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I was like, well, that some bitch is still haunted because I've seen people go in there. And I'm like,
Right.
Yeah, okay, so this is in Southington, Connecticut.
Yes. Southington.
I don't know that I've ever seen anybody investigate this place. Definitely the Conjuring house in Rhode Island. I've seen a couple of teams in there, but why do you think that? I mean, it's just a funeral home.
I don't know.
The Conjuring house, there was the whole witch being hanged out in the front yard back in the 1700s, and
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff going on there. But this place, or do you think like family stuff drew an entity there? But
Well,
something that powerful.
there's more than one, story.
That's like some Native American burial ground type.
There's some about the that talks about when Lorraine first went down, and I didn't go into great detail because it gets really graphic. But not as if sodomy is not graphic enough.
I said reach around earlier, so
Yeah. So when Lorraine first went down, there was this spirit on the stairs, and that told her that basically that he had violated the corpses.
They were accused of necromancy.
Yeah.
Oh, they were doing
Or necrophilia.
Necrophilia or mancy?
This says practice necromancy.
Okay,
There was another
well-
one that said that they were convicted of necrophilia.
Oh wow.
Well, if they were the necrophilia is bad enough. If they were doing like black magic, necromancy stuff, trying to raise the dead, or doing
There's no telling what went on.
rituals with the dead bodies, then yeah, okay, that might cause a bit of a stain on the place.
Yeah, it was, and the Ed and Lorraine stuff. Some of their stories are just like, oh my God, they go
Some of
they
them
go
are
over
a
the
little-
top.
A little hard to believe sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So I think it goes, it boils down to, do you believe Ed and Lorraine are really? He's really a demonologist. How do you get to be a demonologist? You go to.
Is there a class at a community college
Do-
you can take to
Do you go to university for that?
TJC offer?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think this is the last
Can you get an
place that
associate's
she would
degree
be.
in demonology?
I don't think that's.
So they were practicing necromancy. She said, or in one version or one of the stories that I read, where it says that she encountered someone who encountered a spirit that admitted to necrophilia.
I mean, that could have been part of the necromancy.
It could have been, maybe that's part of the ritual. I don't
what
know.
kind of jacked up rituals people were.
I don't know.
But I mean, hey, if you're into that, funeral home is the place to be.
Ugh.
It's a little stiff for my taste. But
Oh my God.
it's a little
But
dry, a little stiff. But if you're performing like black magic crap down there and doing shit with the bodies,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's no telling what went on.
and it
But
could all be
obviously,
exaggerated because in the film version, it's quite exaggerated from the and
they obviously shook something loose.
jarred something loose.
They jarred something loose for sure. But no, it's really sad with Philip, though, being forced to stay in that basement, being forced to deal with this thing standing at his bedside every night. And, on the different accounts that I've read, they're down in there and he's standing there going, he said, your parents blame you for their financial troubles and it's all your fault. You should just die,
Or being diagnosed with schizophrenia and treated for it when he very well could have been completely sane. But just because he talked about all these entities that were haunting him, they said,
Yeah,
well,
but
he's got
Alan got-
schizophrenia.
Why would you
I
say he's
know.
got schizophrenia when you get
Well, obviously he didn't go tell the docs, hey, by the way, what he's saying might be true.
So here's the thing. If you're subjected to enough over a period of time, I mean, what happens when you put a person into isolation for a period of time? They go nuts. They lose their shit.
most people. Some people like being alone.
But I mean, true isolation, it gets to them after a while. So maybe that happened to Philip. And not only is he isolated, you know, even if it's self-imposed, he's still isolated.
You have to eat, though. You got to eat. It's got to come up. People have to come down.
Yeah,
They
but
have
I
to come
mean,
up for food.
You know, even prisoners get an hour in the yard or something, you know. So, but I'm saying, what if this is what broke Philip? What if this is what caused his psychosis? Was being subjected to the demonic
You're either
influence.
going to have serious mental problems from this, or
If he has
you're going to
psychosis.
get used to it after a while. And just
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe he wasn't schizophrenic at all.
I was gonna say, who says it's psychosis? I mean, if
Because
you're
we've always
experiencing
said,
it-
you know, what's the difference between schizophrenia and demonic possession? You know,
fine line.
I mean, as far as what it appears on the outside, it pretty much looks the same in my mind.
And according
You
to
know?
Russell Crowe, 98%.
I'm hearing voices. I'm seeing things
Or
that aren't there that
mental
everybody else
problems.
doesn't see. Am I schizophrenic or am I demonically possessed? You know.
I guess you'd have to examine the.
they say medication changes one and medication doesn't change the other, and that's how you know the difference. Medications don't affect demonic
Oh, that's true.
possessions,
Yeah, you
but
get somebody,
medications affect schizophrenics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that would
But
work.
how
Yeah,
many
you got 'em on the-
we've worked in psych hospital.
How many schizophrenics take their meds?
How many schizophrenic do you medicate and it doesn't work and you have to try another med,
Right.
and then you try another med and you try another med
maybe
until you find
guys missed
one
some
that
demonic
works.
possession that
Oh, dude, I'm
y'all
telling you,
treated as-
there's probably a few that came through that I would not argue the fact that they were demonically possessed.
I also will argue the fact that some of them came in doing that because they pickled their brains with other things, as in
Trace
drugs
agaves,
and. Well, hey, there were.
Well, during the interview that I saw with the family and the Warrens, there were neighbors who said that Philip was like dropping acid.
not that I would know, but that will not cause you to be possessed.
Hallucinate?
Well, no, it'll cause you to hallucinate for
But
about 8 to 12 hours, and then it stops.
okay, but what if we know that LSD is people call it a mind altering, but a lot of people believe that it's not necessarily mind altering, but it opens your mind up.
What does the open thing? So I hear.
So if it opens your mind up,
And you never
could it
look at the
open you
world
up
the
to
same.
be possessed by something or influenced by something that's
You might
already
be
attacking you?
Opened up to perceive things that you would not have normally,
Yeah, normally
been perceived,
perceived,
because
i.e. a
the
demon
doors of
spirit.
perception have been
Right. So
open in a way they weren't before.
if he did that, if he did the LSD and he opened his mind up and now he's in the presence of something that would take advantage of an open mind, i.e. a demon, would that
Well,
give
you
it...
bet you do it LSD, haunted ass son bitch.
No,
Well, then you also have schizophrenics who are usually like devoutly religious and think they are Jesus Christ, whereas demonic possession is usually very much against anything that's not
Right.
any kind
Well,
of
the
spiritual.
proof is when you throw the holy water on him and it
And they
smokes.
Yeah.
Can't fake that.
Or what if you turn around and you spit green pea soup across the room with projectile vomiting and hit the priest in the face with it?
Or
Is
if
that
you
is that
send the
demonic
priest
possession?
flying out of the room and say wrong priest.
Yeah.
Pretty good indicator.
Back, shaman, back.
Wrong fucking priest.
Oh.
It's fresh on the mind because I just
I
watched
bet.
it the other day. It's a
So you like this?
I liked it.
I thought it was lame
There is
AF.
nothing more delightful than the sight of old fat Russell Crowe on a Vespa with his luggage.
More delightful. I love it. That's
Right.
delightful.
Or how about shooting the goat?
Shooting a pig. It's a pig.
Oh, was it a pig?
That was brilliant. That's a great idea.
Dude, that movie was so
It's exact-
lame.
I liked it.
Oh my God, I hated that movie.
And I liked the
I
whole
was
tie-in
pissed
with the,
off when I watched that movie because I did the pay-per-view.
the whole year. Oh, no, I waited till it was on Netflix.
No, I did pay-per-view because I wanted to see it. I couldn't wait to see this movie. It's going to be great. It's Russell Crowe. It's
Your sins,
it's
will return
paranormal.
or whatever. You know, they go fight. And it makes sense. It's the Catholic Church's great shame of the
Yeah, that. So don't
They
spoil the
killed
movie.
everybody.
Don't spoil the movie for everyone.
Oh no,
so.
no, yeah. Well, this will be another month. If you hadn't seen it by the time this video drops,
Right.
after it's been on
You
Netflix,
had no intention of
Yeah,
seeing
you had
it.
no
It's
intention
been
of
on
really
Netflix.
watching it
By
anyway.
the time this drops, it had been on Netflix for 6 weeks at least. So good. It's great. Russell Crowe and the Vespa.
Okay, we're gonna do
Brilliant.
the Siskel and Ebert thing here for
I enjoyed
what was the name of the movie? I don't even
The
remember.
Pope's Exorcist.
The Pope's Exorcist. I give it a thumbs down.
I give it a thumbs up.
I never saw it.
I thought it was fun. It was exactly what I expected from it, with the addition of old fat Russell Crowe in a priest garb with a flowing on a Vespa,
Tacky.
driving all the way from Rome
Yeah, that actually was pretty funny. Seeing him on a Vespa.
to Spain
That was
on
pretty
that
funny.
Vespa.
That was pretty funny.
It
I got to
was
give you
great.
that.
It
That was
great.
hilarious.
That made the whole movie. And
The
you
rest of the movie. Okay, how about the part where
you
he's?
get multiple scenes of him on the Vespa.
How about the part where he's floating up above the pit and all that?
That wasn't
No.
him. That was. It looked like.
Oh, he did too.
Like Mary coming out of the, and then it went blah,
Yeah, it
all
just
scary.
okay.
And I liked the cages with the skeletons. I don't know. I liked it.
Tres Agaves, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs way up for that.
Okay, way up for that. And we did the Blanco tonight.
No reason to spend any more on anything at that price.
That's a great tequila at that price.
Mm-hmm.
The Philip, that's a sad story. Any way you slice it, that's sad. The dude, he already had life stacked against him. He ended up with cancer at 13, 14 years old. And then he gets even possessed. And he gets exiled in the basement. And then he gets stuck in a psych hospital. You know, the dude had it rough. And then he dies.
But, I mean, he did that like 20 years later.
He did die 20 years later. And he did end up drug addicted in between.
He beat the odds.
He beat the odds. He did. But it's still a sad story. And so Trace Agave's good. We're split on
Pope's
Russell Crowe.
Exorcist?
Pope's Exorcist. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5.
Don't waste your money. Wait till it's free on
I hardly
Netflix.
looked at my. It is free on Netflix. I hardly looked at my phone the whole time. That's the sign of a good movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I have for you. Are we good?
Yep.
Good night.